as we wait upon the Lord. We will wait upon the Lord. We will wait upon the Lord. Strength will rise as we wait upon the Lord. We will wait upon the Lord. We will wait upon the Lord. Our God, you reign forever. Our hope, our strong deliverer. You are the everlasting God, the everlasting God. You do not faint, you won't grow weary. You're the defender of the weak. You comfort those in need. You lift us up on wings like eagles. Strength will rise as we wait upon the Lord. We will wait upon the Lord. We will wait upon the Lord. Strength will rise as we wait upon the Lord. We will wait upon the Lord. We will wait upon the Lord. Our God, you reign forever. Our hope, our strong deliverer. You are the everlasting God, the everlasting God. You do not faint, you won't grow weary. You're the defender of the weak. You comfort those in need. And you lift us up on wings like eagles. Blessed be your name in the land that is plentiful, where streams of abundance flow. Blessed be your name. Blessed be your name, when I'm found in the desert place. Though I walk through the wilderness, blessed be your name. And every blessing you pour out, I'll turn back to praise. And when the darkness closes in, Lord, still I will say, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Blessed be your name, when the sun's shining down on me, when the world's all as it should be. Blessed be your name. Blessed be your name, on a road marked with suffering. be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Walking around these walls, I thought by now they'd fall, but you have never failed me yet. Waiting for change to come, knowing the battle's won, for you have never failed me yet. Promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You've never failed me yet. I know the night won't last. Your word will come to pass. My heart will sing your praise again. Jesus, you're still enough. So keep me within your love. My heart will sing your praise again. Promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You'll never fail. Still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my great is your faithfulness, your faithfulness. And I'm still in your hands, 'cause this is my confidence. You never failed me yet.
I'm a writer. I've been dreaming about writing the words that could change the world since the very first time someone called me a mean name, and I understood the incredible power words have. The world was my blank page, and I was the author of my own first-person narrative. When I start writing a story, I tend to start backward, because I usually know how I want it to end. The ending is always the most important to me. So I start with my happy ending, and then I start working on the beginning, and from there, the middle of the story is built. This was how I tried to live my life as well. If I wanted to get to the end, my beginning had to start a certain way, often meaning a drastic change of some sort. And from there, I could fill in the rest. Only this doesn't work so well in real life. It wasn't before long that I began to realize that the rest of the world wasn't cooperating with the story I'd been writing for myself. If I was my own protagonist, reality was my ultimate antagonist, the arch enemy of my story. The rest of the world rarely cared about furthering my story, let alone helping me to get to my happy ending. There were plot twists I never saw coming, and often when I finally made my way to what I thought might be the end, or at least an end, it was a hollow victory. It was never the end. It was never enough. For someone writing my own story, I felt amazingly out of control of the whole thing. For 24 years, I tried to keep moving forward. I'm a firm believer that authors are driven by two motives: the desire to be loved for their creation and the desire to be known through their creation. In my reality, my creation was myself, and it was neither loved nor known. And I was ready for the story to be over. So I stopped writing the story. But something, somehow, kept it moving forward. I could only ignore the truth of it for so long. Someone else was writing my story. There was someone else writing the whole story, and I needed to know who it was. As I said, an author wants to be known through his creation. So I finally opened my eyes and started looking around me. I discovered it wasn't just me. There was so much more to take into consideration. I began to understand this author hadn't just made me, he'd authored an entire world. I started studying my author, looking back into my story, and seeing something fuller, something I hadn't seen before. I had to understand what was going on. And then a friend one day told me I could stop studying him from a distance, and I could get to personally know him instead. But why would the author of the universe want to know me? It took me a while to truly understand that just like I love every character I've ever created, every effort I've poured onto blank pages of notebook paper, and every moment I've spent lost in the fictional worlds I've created. The author of the universe loves me because he made me. So where did this leave me? Every day, I wake up in God's story, and I have a choice what role I get to play. Some days I'm the protagonist. Some days, more of a supporting character. But one thing has become increasingly clear. I'm not the main character of this story. I'm his. And this is his story.
Welcome, everybody. So glad for you to join us. We're continuing our series where we just get to hear people's stories. It's them and Jesus, and just a little snapshot of their story there. And we got someone, a couple with us. It's if you're not aware, Kevin and Angie Weigel live in Romania. So there's a time change happening here. It's the morning here. It's the evening there in Romania. But we, as a church, City Cell Church, we support them and what they're doing in Romania. And I'm sure we're going to hear a little bit about what they do there and how they ended up there. But I just thought it'd be a great opportunity just to hear their story and hear their heart a little bit. So it's great to have you two.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. So just, we talked a little bit before we hit record, but you guys have pretty different stories of just coming to Jesus, coming to faith. So Kevin, why don't you just kind of maybe just quickly give us a snapshot of kind of your childhood and how that involved Jesus?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Edmonton, in Christian home. My family are all believers. Accepted Christ when I was 5, actually, during Sunday school. I remember my Sunday school teacher talking about how we do things that are wrong and are bad, and realizing that I didn't know much about the gospel, but I did know that I wanted to obey my parents, but I felt like sometimes I couldn't, and there was something I needed help from Jesus to help me to be kind to my brother and sister, to do what I knew was right. And so I accepted Christ, and growing up, I was kind of a nominal moral person. I was a Christian. I went to church, did all the right things, but really Jesus wasn't the first thing in my life.
Okay.
But when I was in university, was invited to a Bible study, and got involved in Campus Crusade for Christ there at the University of Alberta, and God really impacted my life in a powerful way, and rededicated my life to Jesus, and He really became my Lord and Savior. But not just that; it was my friend and kind of my delight. So that was a very different experience than me growing up.
So it sounds like for you there was a difference between hey, I go to church, try to do the right thing, and number one thing in my life, or kind of that older language, Lord of my life, is Jesus. Could you just maybe just briefly just kind of those two kind of ways of living, like just the difference between those two? Because often we see them as, oh, isn't the same, but you're kind of saying for you it was very different, those two.
Yeah, I think I played. There is like an expectation of what a Christian is and what they're supposed to do, and I kind of followed the rules. I checked all the boxes, but the passion of my heart was not Jesus. It was whatever. So that became a very different thing when I hit university.
Awesome. And Angie, your story is different. Obviously, we're all different, but so why don't you kind of explain, tell us a bit about your story?
Sure. So I grew up in Saskatchewan in a non-Christian home, and I went to university and was led to Christ by a friend who had also recently been saved. And I'd never read the Bible, so I literally, when people would say John 3:16, I was like, what is that? Like, who's John, and what's 3, what's 16? How come everybody's throwing all these numbers around? I had no clue. But I had people that poured into me really well right away, and I grabbed hold of the Bible and read it in a year, and was, coloring it. Commands are green and promises are blue, and went through the whole thing, and was really just undone by the story of redemption and the grace of God. And I remember, understanding, like in the Old Testament, when the priests went into that holy of holies, it was like Jesus, going on our behalf and making a way for us. And I was able to connect it, and it really undid me. And so right away after I got saved, it took me a while to kind of set my priorities straight and look at my life and go, okay, this is what Jesus is asking me to do. This is what I'm doing. What do I really want here? Who do I want? And it was, a crazy few months of making hard decisions. But when I finally let go of, patterns of living and broken relationships, then I was all in, and I just was basically, Jesus, I want to live my life for you. I want what you want. And I had a lifelong dream of becoming a veterinarian. And a few years after I was saved, I laid that down, and I said, okay, if this isn't what you want for me, then I just want to serve you in whatever capacity you have for me. So that, yeah.
So switching gears from like, and being a veterinarian, not a terrible, horrible goal in life, but switching gears from, hey, what I want out of my life, to, okay, Jesus, you kind of steer and direct and guide me, and I'll just do what you want. How did those around you, like family and stuff, were they kind of like, you are crazy, or did it open conversations, or what happened there?
Well, also, I mean, about 10 months into my relationship with Jesus, I went to Serbia in 1995 when there was a lot of stuff going on.
Okay.
And my dad was from Hungary, right next door, so not a fan.
Yeah.
My parents actually thought I was in a cult and called the police at one point. And my brother, pulled out his grade 12 sociology textbook and said, you're in a cult. And it was, yeah, so definitely there was some resistance. But over the years, I mean, my dad died a number of years ago, but I had the privilege of literally discipling him into heaven. And so that was awesome. And as I grew in my faith, I watched him resurrect his Catholic roots from living in Hungary and get closer to God over the years. And that was amazing. So so controversy and redemption, both, yes.
Nice. And
And now my family just accepts where I'm at and who, yeah, and they, my mom loves me and is proud of me, and it's awesome. So yeah.
Nice.
Good.
And you keep going back to that word redemption. That seems to be a key aspect for you.
It is. I'm a redemption hunter. Yes. I'm always looking for, if there's something hard or awful going on, I'm like, Jesus, where are you? Because I know it's who you are, it's what you do. So if something is hard in my life or in the lives of the people around me, I know you are in the thick of this and wanting to bring good out of it. And I've seen that over the years. And yeah, it's one of the things that I've cultivated in my heart. Yeah,
nice.
For sure.
Yeah, it's key. So I'd love to be able to like just dabble and talk about kind of the whole life, but we don't have enough time this morning. So let's fast forward. Maybe Kevin, go back to you. You guys meet, you get married. I'm in Edmonton, you're in Romania. You guys were in Edmonton. Like, what? Maybe a bit of like, how did you end up there? Maybe a bit of that. Unpack a bit of that story of your guys' journey.
Yeah, so we got married in September 25th, 1999.
Nice.
And just double checking that with the wife, making sure.
It's good that you know that.
You know that, yes.
So
Well done, honey.
and
Well done.
almost immediately we went to Bible school because we like Angie had said, we both felt this call to ministry in some capacity. We didn't know what that would look like yet, but we felt like we needed to go and do training. So we went to Kansas City to Bible school there. And while we were part of that Bible school, we were part of a house church, small group community. And we were really trying to live out the book of Acts in an intentional way, discovering what that was like together. Um, and it really ruined us for community. It ruined us for discipleship. It ruined us for um, not just going to church on Sunday and then kind of living our life the rest of the week however we wanted. And so we decided from that experience that we would, wherever we were, that we would be intentional about making disciples, about gathering those disciples into simple church communities, and doing that wherever we are. And so we we went through this church planning training program or school called CPX with All Nations, the missions agency that we're with right now in Romania in 2006. And but when we finished that, we didn't really have a particular nation on our hearts. Like God didn't, we didn't, neither me or Angie grew up thinking China, we're gonna pray for China every day and maybe one day go to China or something like that. There was no nation on our heart. We just laid that before the Lord. But one thing that we did know is that we wanted to be part of a strong team with similar values, vision, and a real heart to be family together. And so we connected with some Bible school friends actually that were in Romania as missionaries. They had been there 5 years before we moved there, and we joined them in October 2008 as kind of 2 year as a 2 year internship to help us with language and culture and that sort of thing. And at the end of that 2 year internship, we felt like God was leading us to go and pioneer something on our own. And that's when he led us to Brașov, Romania, where we are, and in the center of Romania. We've been there since 2011. So that's our journey.
So it's been quite a while that you've been there.
Yeah, it's been almost 12 years now.
Yeah, that's home now.
Yeah.
So what it sounds like when we back up to Kansas City, the birth was, you said, you used the language, we were ruined for community and discipleship, stuff like that. Angie, maybe can you unpack a little bit of what that ruinedness, or what it was that you're kind of like, okay, this is what we feel. Sounded like more of you were called to a philosophy or what to do as per a location per so maybe just unpack that a little bit of what that ruinedness was.
So at the time we were going to a church that had over 2,000 people. Is that how big it was? It was huge. Children's ministry was like 700 kids. So so we were going to this huge church where you could literally go for months, sit in a different spot every time and never see the same person twice, and just really get lost in it. And it was an amazing, wonderful church. But community and discipleship wasn't happening for us. Whereas when we were in a living room with like-minded people saying, you know what, we're gonna gather together and we're gonna go for it, and we're gonna be vulnerable, we're gonna be honest, we're gonna talk to each other about, what is Jesus saying to us, what's he asking us, how are we going to obey it, how are we going to support each other in obeying it, having meals together, being really intentional about being a community and reaching out to the people around us. If somebody has people in their world that aren't Christians, how do we love on them as a community, and just gathering together and having experienced that. It's like after if you've eaten at 2-star all your life and then you eat at 5-star, it was kind of like that, where it was like just the level of intimacy and community and like really maybe having a small taste for what it might have been like in the book of Acts, and then not ever wanting to go back from that. So I think, does that answer
Yeah,
It's
no,
just,
totally.
yeah,
And I would agree. It's God's written it in all our DNA, that craving for community and intimacy and connection. You just see it everywhere in the church and not in the church. Um, yeah, that's kind of a hill that I think we die on. I think it's a, itself, it's something we try to foster to
Mhm.
absolutely.
to sometimes success, and other times we strike out, but we're trying. So maybe let's just switch gears a tiny little bit of just Kevin, what is that? Because some people know your story really well. Some people have heard you once or twice itself. Some people, they haven't met you guys yet. So maybe just take a moment and just kind of, what does that look like in these last few years for you in Romania? Just you guys serving there and doing ministry and doing life. Just give us the couple minute pitch of what you do and what it looks like.
Sure. Yeah, I think when we first started, we tried to do kind of like a home Bible study, house church thing, invite people to come to our place, and then we would kind of teach them. And my hopes was that my hope was that they would eventually, rise up into leadership, and we would kind of go to one group would become two, that would become four, and we kind of just grow from there. Um, we had a number of groups that we had started in our home, and when we would come to that point of kind of saying, you guys can be leaders of this, we want to empower you and equip you and support you to do this, they would kind of say, no, we're not the missionaries you are, we're not to do this, we're not equipped, we don't have the special training that you have. And so things changed for us drastically in about 4 or 5 years ago, where instead of inviting people to come to what we're doing, we're going to them and training them from the beginning. So when I meet somebody, and when I meet somebody on the street or in our neighborhood, or people that are in our relationship network already, I tell them up front and saying, I'm here to train you how to train others. I'm here to teach you how to teach others, and 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 then I just invest in the people that appeals to, that are open to doing that, and giving them permission, giving them simple tools to do that, and then supporting them on the backside. So I think that and that's when we've really seen multiplication of disciples, where we've seen like this one Roma teenage girl named Yulia. We invested in her. We met with her. We went into her home. I said, I'm not here to teach you the Bible. I'm here to teach you how to teach others. And we learned a story of the Bible. She took that story. The next day, she shared it with all of her friends. And she didn't know very much. She knew like a couple stories and some different things. But what she did was she shared what she knew with everyone she knew, and she obeyed what she knew from the scriptures, and it just started spreading like wildfire. And so yeah, just like the Samaritan woman, she experienced Jesus and immediately leaves her pot and goes and shares with her town, and the whole Samaritan village comes to Christ. So that's what we're believing for and working towards.
Nice. It's lovely. Um, and kind of, I'm gonna throw a curveball at you. Angie, you're talking about redemption, and in the tough times, seeing that Jesus working his redemption in there. Um, in your, maybe a story from your life, or maybe this season in Romania, what has been a struggle, or something that's been tough, or maybe it still is, but just something in that realm, just to maybe just to be a little vulnerable and honest. Like what are some of the struggles or some of the hard things that you guys go through?
What's a good one? Let's see. Well, I mean,
Cultural differences, maybe.
cultural differences, or I mean, how about we talk about the pandemic? Can I go there? I mean, we live in a so we live in the Romania is part of the EU, the European Union, and where we are, it's one of the worst medical systems. It is the worst medical system in the EU, and so in times of the pandemic, and just even like just 2 years ago, like a week and 2 years and a week ago, I mean, Ethan, our son, was in the hospital with, I mean, he had a fever that wouldn't go down. They didn't know what it was. The blood work was like off the charts. I had 2 different doctors that I'd shared the blood work with say, get him to either the infectious disease hospital or the kids hospital now. And so just in the thick of that, like, okay, Jesus, what are you doing? Where are you? Laying down my son's life and going, he is yours. He is a gift to me from you, and you get to decide how many days he has on this earth, not me. At 3 a.m. and I got to stay with him in the hospital, which was great. And just laying that down while he's sleeping beside me, and the Lord just coming with people praying, with Facebook encouragement from around the globe, me going to sleep knowing that you guys have got my back while I'm sleeping at night, because you guys take on my night watch and vice versa. Having insane favor with doctors and interns. It's things like that. I mean, all 4 of us have been hospitalized in Romania at some point or another. And it's kind of terrifying. Like, Romanians will say, as long as you don't get yourself in a hospital, you'll be fine, and all 4 of us have been in there, and every time God has met us, like I remember in the midst of when I was preparing to go for a deviated septum surgery, just being terrified, and the girls that I was discipling coming around me, Romanian women, and just I was weeping and they were praying for me. And then when I went there, I was supposed to stay for 5 days. And I had my first set of roommates and they all left, and my nose wasn't healing. And one time they came and they said, we can't treat you this morning because we don't have any sterile instruments. And I'm like, okay, you just take all the time you need to get those sterilized. I will wait for my treatment. I'll wait till tomorrow if you need me to. And then my next set of roommates came, and there was an older lady who she had something here and it was a cancer, but she didn't understand what the doctor said. So she's like, what does this mean? And so I Googled it, and I'm giving her this really awful cancer diagnosis in my imperfect Romanian, not trained as a doctor or a nurse to do it. And then we prayed a bunch. And from what I understand, every time she would have like a new appointment over the next year, she would call me, and her results were clean every time.
She would call Angie to pray for her.
Like, she's like, her husband would say, call her. And she was calling me we have a priest in our room,
Call the priest first.
Call the priest. And she would call me, and that's the only time I ever heard from her. And I stopped hearing from her, but it was always, my results are good. So things like that, where, it's like, Jesus, why is my nose not healing? I want to go home. And I was in a city 2.5 hours away from Kevin, the kids, and we brought our own food, because you do that. You bring your own cup, your own spoon, your own toilet paper, your own soap, your own towel. And I was running out of food, and I'm like, I'm hungry. I lost 8 pounds while I was in the hospital from not having enough food that I was, But this woman, right? And so it was amazing. So stories like that.
So it sounds like advice that you'd say to people would be, because we're all going to have tough times. That's a guarantee, part of the human condition. But it sounds like you would say, don't focus on the problem, focus on Jesus and what he's doing within the situation or the problem.
Yeah, ask him.
I think we all have a cost that we have to weigh in following Jesus, us becoming missionaries. And that was a big one that Angie had to stare head on and say, the medical system is awful. Canada is one of the best. We have it good in Canada.
Yeah.
And so can I trust Jesus in that? That was a big question. And we walked head on towards that, knowing that Jesus is our doctor. He's our protector. He's the one that takes care of us, right?
Yeah. And I think to answer your question, I think it's a both and, right? I don't think it's good to pretend the problem isn't there, but to pour it out and say, Jesus, this is what's going on. I'm scared, I'm mad, I'm whatever, and be honest with him because he already knows. So pretending that you're fine and full of faith when you're not is you're just lying to him. I mean, it's
Yeah.
silly. But to go there with him and be honest, and then to say, where are you? And I remember, like, when I was time for my treatments with my nose, which I won't get into because I could literally make people sick, but it was awful. And I just say, Jesus, I know you're going in there with me. Show me where you are. Like, give me something. And sometimes he would show me, like, I'm in the room, I'm right here, I'm standing in the corner, I'm rooting for you, I've got you, you've got this. And yeah, that's been yeah,
Well,
a
it's great
powerful thing.
advice. Great advice. It's relevant to everybody, right? Because, like I said, we're all going to have a tough point in some point in our journey. Let's shift gears a little bit and kind of just to end off our time here. What are some of the things, like the habits, disciplines is a word that's used. I prefer the word habit because it just talks about this, regular things that we do. Like any relationship, right? It takes effort. And so our relationship with Jesus, this effort of fostering this relationship and these habits. What are some of the things you guys do just to become more like Jesus, to grow closer to Jesus, that just have become habits in your life?
Yeah, I think for me, I've as we've been here for the last 12 years, I've seen the missionaries that are successful and are staying on the field have learned to be self-feeders spiritually. Those missionaries that say I need to have a church or a pastor to feed me are usually those that don't last very long. Um, and because God is my friend, because I walk with him day in and day out. There's no separation between time with God and everything else. Devotional time, and then the time when God isn't with me. He's always with me, and I like the term that I've heard before, active contemplative. So there's a book called Practicing the Presence of God by Brother Lawrence. It's a small little booklet.
Awesome.
Highly recommended for everybody. And he was a Catholic monk that would wash dishes. And while he's washing dishes, people would come and watch him because he would have these experiences with the Lord, just connecting with him while his hands were busy at work. And so there's a posture of prayer, of awareness of God's presence that we can have day in, day out, whether we're at work, at the table, eating with our families, or in our prayer closets. We don't have to sacrifice one for the other. And so, but like I said, I think those times where we have disciplines or those habits, one of those the two major habits for me anyways is really prayer and fasting. Jesus in Matthew 6, he says in the Sermon on the Mount, he uses this phrase, when you fast. For Jesus, it was an expectation for his disciples to fast. It's not a command, but it was an expectation.
Yeah.
And so he uses the same language as he does when you pray, when you give, and when you fast. So for me, I've gone on several long seasons of fasting, and those are usually pretty disruptive and require some careful planning and intentionality. But regularly, I like to keep a season like these short little 3 days, a week, 10 days, these fasts where, and not water, but usually juice or something like that. And just to kind of keep my heart soft and responsive to Jesus. I find that really is helpful for me. And then really praying, but but I like to use the phrase pray reading God's word. So pray reading the scripture is kind of an important way that keeps my heart alive in God. And what I do is I take my Bible study times and I start putting those into conversation with Jesus. In John 3 and John 5, 39 to 40, Jesus rebukes the religious leaders. He says, you search the scriptures because in them you think that you have eternal life, but you refuse to come to me so that you can have life. And so instead of just reading dead words, taking that love letter that God has given us, and then turning that into conversation with a real person that wants relationship with me. And so, just practically, how I do this is I think of the Bible as having kind of two different categories of verses, like things that you do and things that you are to believe. And so, if I come to a passage like something that I should believe, like I'm the righteousness of Christ, or Jesus is the Son of God, or something like that,
Yeah.
I agree with it, and then I ask God for greater insight. Very simple. If it's something that I'm supposed to do, like go and make disciples, um, or
Fast.
reckon yourself dead to sin and alive to God, right?
Yeah.
I commit to doing it, and then I ask God for strength, encouragement, and power to obey Him in it. And I teach all of our disciples from day one how to do this in Romania. So and a lot of times they don't know how to interact with God's word. Like they try and read it like a normal book. They start from page one and they end it at the end, and thinking that it's like you're gonna do that, but I teach them this is not just for you to read and learn information. It's for you to encounter God and to have conversation with Him, and it just is super helpful for them to learn how to do that. So
No, that's good. I like that prayerfully reading scripture. That's good. Angie, what about you?
For me, it's daily time in the Word, and I think there, in life there are different seasons. I mean, there was a season where I think we were on a team and we read the Bible in 90 days. And then there are other seasons where I've read the Bible in a year, and kind of my heart posture is I'm taking a helicopter tour of the Word to get like the overall arching heart of God. And then there are other seasons where I dive in and say, okay, I'm going to be in this book or this chapter, even this verse for days or weeks or months. And so it's more like, okay, that was a helicopter tour. This is a meander through the forest, and I'm looking at the flowers on a petal and the wings of an insect, and I'm going deep and intimate with just a little bit of it. So always that. And then same with Kevin, as I'm reading the word and God's encountering me and moving on my heart, and those, some of those passages and words just feel a little bit heavier, or they feel like they're louder. I'll take those and respond to them, and just try to cultivate a yes in my heart to whatever it is that He's asking of me, and to just, Jesus, I say yes to this, and consistently speaking that over Him, to Him, and over me. Another thing is just praying for the people around me. Like I've got all these little lists of, these are all the people having babies, and these are all the people who, somebody's got, like there's right now there's a couple of people we know who have cancer, just different things. And so, I'm teaching the kids as we homeschool too. We've got a prayer bowl, and we each grab a cup. We put all our prayer requests of people who are really just struggling right now, and people from literally all over the world. We grab 2 a day, and we pray for them. So that, and nothing better than checking off healed or healthy baby when they said there wouldn't be, or, just those answers that come. And then for me, also time in nature, for me really, really is therapeutic to me, and just feeds my heart. And when the pandemic started, we were allowed to leave our house, but we had to have a piece of paper declaring why, signed. It had to be a new paper every day, and it had to have a reason. And there were only about 6 or 7 reasons we could leave, and one of them was to exercise, for yourself and the needs of your animals. And we don't have a dog or an animal to take, but and I found out how far away from my house I could walk. And I just basically, I think I've missed 3 days since the pandemic started where I haven't gone on a morning walk. And it's just a way to these are crazy times. No one in history has ever lived through a pandemic that has affected the entire world the way we have. And so our self-care and our spiritual care is going to be different, and it's going to need to be amped up in these days. And that's not something we need to apologize for. I mean, it's something we need to do to be wise and to take care of our hearts and do extra things to get close to him. So it's my time to, pour out my heart, pour out my concerns. How do I handle this? Where do you want my thoughts to go on this? And sometimes it's just a quiet walk. And like the other day, I sat down for a while and I was like, this bee that is sitting around, the only likes the blue flowers, and this bee only likes the yellow flowers. And you made these both, and they're different bees, and I don't know anything about either of them. But it's really cool that you did this and that you care about these little details. And then the third thing that is, or third or fourth, I don't know what number I'm on, for me, that's just been happening. I mean, I've been doing it on and off for years, but it's something that I've found especially helpful. I feel like we're in COVID 2.0 right now, where we kind of survived the first wave, and now we're all just really, really tired, maybe depressed, probably somewhat traumatized, or impacted, exhausted, or traumatized. We're all on some level of that. Especially with school starting, and then fall and flu season. And so for me, I like doing puzzles. Puzzles are a love-hate thing. So if it's not a puzzle, it's something where, I'm coloring, I'm doing something where my hands are busy, but my mind and my heart and just all of me can rest. And I'll throw on some worship music and just sit there and do it. And I was talking with a friend about it, and she said, I never really thought of doing that because I don't want to have to engage in anything. I'm tired of the Zoom calls. I'm tired of engaging people. And I said, that's what's great about it. I come to these and I have no expectation of anything. I'm just like, Jesus, you and I are going to hang out, and I'm going to do this puzzle, and I'm going to have the worship music on. And it's like, when you're with a really good friend and you know each other so well, and you're so comfortable that you just don't have to say anything. And you just sit, like, I think of it like sitting on the dock of a lake with your feet dangling and nobody says anything, and you watch the sunset. That's kind of my puzzle time. And the worship music's going, and sometimes absolutely nothing happens. Sometimes I remember that I have to take food out from the freezer and I go grab it. Sometimes he just downloads this love on me, or words from a song hit me. And so that's been it's a different kind of self-care that maybe hasn't made it into a devotional book, but it's floating my boat. It's working for me. So yeah.
Oh, that's great. Just taking that time. You're creating space is what you're doing.
Yes, I am. Exactly. That's a great way of saying it. Yeah.
No, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for taking the time and just sharing with us, just from your life. Like I said, some people know you well. Some people have heard you guys once or twice. Some people newer to self maybe haven't heard you yet. You guys send out some emails for prayer. You send out some emails of just kind of updates of what's happening there in Romania. And as a church, as we support you, maybe some people aren't part of those emails or not. Is there, other than asking me and I can get them in touch with you, is there a way that a better way for people just to connect with you guys and know what's going on there?
Yeah, so you can find us online. We don't have a website, but we have an email address, we4ygelts@gmail.com. And if people want to follow us on our prayer updates or newsletters, I'm sure they can get in touch with you or something.
You put it in the link, like our address and link.
And yeah, we'd love to. We've been a part of City Center and City South from the very beginning, and so we love City South, our family there. We love you. We appreciate the way that you support us, the prayer, finances, the way that you walk alongside us, and God has a tremendous inheritance in the people that we've invested through you guys and your partnership with us. So we love you and we just appreciate it.
Thank you. Yes. When you all get to heaven, you'll hear about Romanian people and you'll be like, who? And we'll be like, yeah, because of what you do. So thank you.
Yeah, it's the collective, the kingdom, all of us together, working together.
Yes.
So again, thank you to everybody watching. In the comments there, we'll put some of this information and details to reach out. If you got any questions, feel free to ask, and I can do my best to answer or point you into the right direction. Just stick around, and we're going to have some announcements coming up right now. So thank you so much.
Good morning, City South Church. Thank you for joining us online. Just some couple of announcements I wanted to bring to your guys' attention. This Sunday and next Sunday, we will be offering Church in the Park. So if you didn't get to join us in the park this Sunday, don't stress. Next week, you can join us at the same location that we were having it at over the past couple Church in the Park services. That's at the North Melbourne Community League at 10 a.m. So if you'd like to join us next week, we will be meeting there. And after that, our following 2 Sundays will be strictly online. But some more exciting news on that front. On September 20th, we will be returning to the church in the building for those of us that are comfortable joining us in person. The reason we decided on September 20th is just so we can give parents time to adjust to the new normal that is school, and we can all try to adjust to this constantly changing reality. So we are super excited, though, that we will be able to start hosting in-person services. But regardless, if in-person services is something that you're not comfortable with, we will continue to have content online for services, sermons, and so forth. So feel free to continue to follow us on YouTube, check us out on our Facebook page, and we're going to be trying to be able to cater to both sides of things as we're in this new constant change that is the new normal, I guess. So if that's something at all that you're interested in, and as well as Pastor Carolyn and myself, we are continuing to do our youth and kids meetups. So if that's something you're interested in, feel free to connect with one of us. If you want to connect with myself for the youth side of things, you can contact me at matt@citysouthchurch.com. And if you want to contact our children's pastor, Carolyn, it's carolyn@citysouthchurch.com. We will be bringing some more information with youth coming into the future, so keep yourself up to date on that by checking us out online. Lastly, I just wanted to thank you guys for your giving and tithing in this season and these seasons that's continuing to go forth. Your tithes are what's making this all happen, guys, and we just really appreciate it. If giving is something that you're interested in doing with us, you can go over to www.citysouthchurch.com, and you can click the Give tab there, and it'll give you some further instructions. Until then, we'll either see you in person next week, or we'll see you back here online. Have a great week, everybody.